Hey, everybody. Welcome to another college basketball conversation with Adam Mack and Mike Barrera. I am Mike Barrera. He is Adam Mack. Today, we are recording on Thursday, December 4th, 2025. The show will be released on the following day, the 5th of December. But, Adam, we have a lot to talk about. It's been about almost a month since we recorded our first show together. And since then, we've had Feast Week. The Big Five has kind of come together for the title match this coming Saturday. You've been covering a handful of games that we already lost track of. So we've been really busy. I just wrote a piece on the Big East. First and foremost, how are you? How was your Thanksgiving? And, let's dive into this conversation.
Honestly, I mean, I know this is a basketball show, but the Eagles probably ruined my Thanksgiving, but
True.
that's a conversation for another day. But
Same.
no, I mean, it's good. Like we're kind of past like that first couple weeks of the college basketball season where it's
Mhm.
exciting. You don't really know who's going to be good. You have the preseason rankings that are usually kind of garbage, but
Mhm.
it's
Yep.
kind of coming full all out now. Like you kind of see who the real contenders are, who the pretenders are, and like Florida doesn't look like they're the next dynasty of college basketball. A little bit, UConn might be back a little bit, but you were a good month and a half into the season now, and you can kind of see who's legit now and who's not. Especially obviously now with the Big Five Classic, like that's been that's excitement right from the start of the season, and it's a fun little championship caliber tournament now, first week in December.
Actually, speaking of tournaments, I don't know if you saw today, John Rothstein released that there's going to be a tournament in Dubai I think it's next year, or the year after. I can't remember right now, but like we have all these MTs going around, like the Charleston Classic.
Yeah,
Butler won the Greenbrier Tip Off. We had the Emerald Coast. I mean, there's so many. You lose track of exactly what their names are, but apparently they're going to have one in Dubai in the next year or so. So I'm curious to see which power conference teams goes out there because of course, there's going to be a power conference school that
has
gets
to be.
gets that invite. But no, listen, man, you're absolutely right. It's been a lot of digesting in the first month. Let the pieces fall where they may. Which players are going to step up? Which players are not? The previews, like you said, more often than not, they're not always that accurate. But I think that the best thing I love about this part of the season, especially the Thanksgiving, is Feast Week. There's games on literally all day. There's games on every single day. I mean, I think it was like a 7, 8 day stretch, whatever it might be. We were talking about Thanksgiving. It's 12 o'clock on Thanksgiving, and I have Furman versus Richmond on the TV before the football. I said, everybody can watch football afterwards. I'm locked in on this game right now. I don't care what anybody else wants to watch. But that's the great part about it. But I think also the cool thing about the Feast Week games and these MTEs are they're typically in neutral sites. They're not really necessarily a home arena for most teams. And you get to see just an even playing field against schools that don't always play against each other. Like Furman may not play Richmond that often, or LSU is probably not going to play DePaul too often either. And so it's one of those things where it's a good test to see where these schools lie and really how can they compete against lower or higher major programs. But I mean, just from what your games that you've gone to so far, if you want to list off a few things and kind of what teams have stood out to you in your coverage in particular over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, so I mean, these like kind of one thing on these like tournaments, like the Maui Invitational and all those kind of things. It's crazy that you mentioned like the thing about Dubai. It's like our team's willing to really kind of do that. He was Darren Hurley last year,
Yep.
where he said UConn is done with these tournaments, like 5 games in 5 days. Like it's not healthy for his players,
No.
especially like if you get hurt, like you have like some pretty bad injuries or whatever, and you can't. A guy's gonna be out for 2 to 3 days. You just do like a home and home with the team. 2 to 3 days, all right, they're back for the next game, but 2 to 3 days, and they're now out, and you now drop 4 games.
Right.
So it'll be curious, what these kind of tournaments do. We always say about the college football, like the bowl season is dying. I wonder what happens with these kind of tournaments over the next few years. Like to the mid majors, they're awesome because they can get paid for them. It's awesome,
Yeah.
but like for bigger schools like Michigan, Duke, Connecticut. I'm just going down the rankings. Hey,
Sure. Yeah.
Louisville, Michigan State.
Houston.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you wondered if they're going to continue to do these tournaments because if they have the thoughts about a national championship. 4 losses to start the year. You start the season 1-4. It's a tough hole to dig yourself out of.
God, that's a great talking point for a couple reasons. One, right? If you saw on Twitter for even one of those days on Feast Week, you saw how many people hated the Players Era Festival, whatever it's called. They just didn't like it, flat out. Um, on the other hand, you look at certain schools that are in a Power Five conference that don't necessarily have the best resume in the world. And sometimes when you get these MTEs, you have a chance to play some higher quad one, quad two teams and build a resume. At the same time, like you just said, you also risk losing to
Yeah.
considerable opponents like Marquette, who are absolutely reeling right now. And we'll get to Marquette in a little bit when we talk about the Big East. But they have lost to every single top program they played. They lost to Wisconsin. No, not Wisconsin. I'm sorry, they lost to Dayton. They lost to Oklahoma. They lost to Maryland, and they lost to another team that's escaping me right now. But like these are legitimate Power Five conference. I mean, Dayton A10 is not a Power Five conference or Power Conference, but it's a pretty respectable conference in the A10. And those are tough losses for them. They could have been good wins. So I can see your argument on both sides. At the same time, for these tournaments, you're right. UConn's not going to go back to Maui. And if you look at the Maui Invitational, and I think it's only 4 teams. I'm not sure if there's 6. I think there's only 4. But it's this year. It was Seton Hall, who again we'll talk about them. They looked awesome. It was Seton Hall, USC, NC State, who was ranked 23rd at the time, and then Washington State. I mean, no, those aren't going to attract the viewership like Duke or UConn or Arizona Gonzaga, but those are still pretty solid programs. Honestly, if you're going to see a team like Dayton or VCU or Seton Hall, or I'm trying to think of other, Grand Canyon, I always kind of go back to them. These really popular mid majors, that's great exposure for them, and that's a great opportunity for them because other schools don't want to be a part of it. So like, it's such a back and forth with exactly like what's better for the sport. I think what you and I could both agree on is that right now we're seeing a lot of good basketball and a lot of competitive basketball. We're talking a lot of buzzer beaters, upsets we just talked about before we started recording. Minnesota took care of Indiana last night at home in the first Big Ten game for them. So there's been a lot of good hoops lately and a lot to talk about. But I know in particular you have been focusing more on the Big Five. So what have you seen? First of all, remind me again for like the third time. what what games did you go to? And like, what are your thoughts? Talk about LaSalle, Penn, etc.
All right, so let's go through of the big. I've seen four of the six Big Five teams because
Yes,
6 schools in the Big Five makes total sense.
sure.
Um, so just missing Drexel and Villanova. We'll see them obviously on Saturday at the Big
Mhm.
Five Classic. But
Yeah,
had an opportunity to see 2 games out of Temple. One where they dominated LaSalle.
yeah,
Just did such a good job, like physicality wise. Shooting the basketball really well. Aiden Tobias and Gavin Griffiths, Durain Ford did a really, really good job shooting the ball against that LaSalle game. Um, Followed it up when Temple played Boston College, and Temple couldn't hit a shot. They didn't hit a three-pointer until 10 minutes left in the second half.
wow.
And until the last 4 minutes of the game, when Gavin Griffiths literally hit 4 threes in a minute, they couldn't shoot the ball to if they wanted to. If the hoop was 30 feet wide, they weren't going to hit a basket. So I've seen Temple both play really, really well, and I've seen
Yeah,
Temple play really, really bad. For LaSalle, the first game against Temple, I think it was early. It's a brand new team that Darius Nicholas has at LaSalle
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
They didn't play really well, but when I saw them against Penn on Saturday, man, they just lost energy the last 5 minutes of the game and lost that game. But like for the first, I gotta do math. 35 minutes of that game, honestly, LaSalle was the best team on that court.
I thought Penn
They
was
did.
going to lose that day. Yeah,
Honestly, Penn had no business winning that game.
I know.
TJ
I watched
TJ
it.
Power is the only reason why Penn won that game. And so, I've seen 2 versions of LaSalle. I
Yeah,
think LaSalle just doesn't have the depth that they need to be able to compete at the level that they kind of want to. If they had just a couple more guys, I think off the bench, I think LaSalle is a lot better team. They're scrappy. I'm trying to think the guy, Jaden Marshall, phenomenal shooter. I love what he's been able to do for them, but they just have no depth. And what did a really good job is once they had a little momentum, shifting from man to a zone,
yeah,
it was killer. LaSalle had no business getting through them. They couldn't make a shot. So shout out to Frank McCaffrey and the rest of the Penn coaching staff for that decision. But again, LaSalle had no business losing that game. They should have won that game. They're up 15 points at one point.
hmm
Penn didn't take over um, the lead until like 4 minutes left in the game, but TJ Power put Penn on his shoulders. 19 points in the second half. I think at the 10-minute mark in the second half, the second leading highest score for Penn had like 4. Like
wow,
Penn
wow,
had no
yeah,
business winning that game. So
not at all.
Who else? Let's see. I had St. Joe's Princeton on Sunday.
Yep.
Um, I'm not really sure if St. Joe's played down to the level of Princeton or if Princeton played up to the level of St. Joe's. But it was a back and forth game. St. Joe's would take the lead, then Princeton would take the lead. St. Joe's, like, no team had more than like a 6 point lead throughout that game, but St. Joe's got a little bit of lead at the end of the game. Princeton had to start some fouls. They had a chance to at least tie or win the game at the buzzer, and Princeton just couldn't get a shot off. Deuce Jones, man, one of the best defenders in the Big Five.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I loved about what Steve Donahue did is I'm blanking on the name from Princeton, but he had like 6 of the team's first 7 points or something. It was crazy. And then Deuce Jones was like that was his role. You guard him. No one else gets near him, and did a phenomenal job of just defending him. So curious of how that St. Joe's Temple game goes on Saturday. I think that's probably honestly the 3 games that we're going to see, the best of the 3 games. If Temple plays like they did against LaSalle, St. Joe's is going to have their hands full. But it was the last game I had. Delaware, Iona. Delaware's big man, Daniel Hauser. Like, Iona had no match for him. Like, he is such a good physical big man down below. Like, physically, like, I think he's like 6'9", 6'10", so he's not the tallest guy probably in college basketball, but, he's wide, like, he plays physical, plays strong, just has little to no offensive game. Like, I think Delaware probably could have won that game if he shot 50%, but he probably shot, I'm fairly certain, under 20% for that game. And Iona, CJ Anthony, he was their guard, leading scorer and assist. He took over the game in the second half. And once the offense started to run through him, opened up so many different guys on the perimeter for Iona. Iona dominated 3-point. I only think they scored like 1 or 2 more than Delaware, but when it came to 3-point percentage, I think Iona shot like 60 to 70% 3-point in the second half, while Delaware shot like 20. Like, it wasn't even remotely close. So really good, games over the weekend. Obviously, saw Merrimack and Hofstra. Hofstra just walked through Merrimack. Wasn't really much there. Honestly, but then Hofstra came out and dominated Penn the next day. So honestly, Hofstra's a team to keep an eye on because they're well coached. Speedy Claxton was screaming at his guys, man. But saw a lot of great basketball. 4 games in 3 days. 3 games on this upcoming Saturday. Should be fun.
Yeah, you're talking about like these smaller schools like Iona. You mentioned Princeton, right? Delaware. I was going through Twitter today and I saw a comment about Xavion Lee, who's a Princeton transfer who plays for Florida now, and apparently he isn't doing well. So, like, while you were talking about Princeton, I thought about him and I pulled up an article from Gators Wire, which would be for the Florida Gators, and they say the saying goes, play with emotion, not emotion. Lee can't lose his joy every time the shot doesn't fall. So apparently, Lee's really let his emotions show when he's not playing well. But they say in the article it's very Jekyll and Hyde. So the reason why I bring that up is it's you get to see these players who might actually be transferring up to a bigger school like Florida or UConn, whatever. So it's like a good way to kind of introduce yourself to those types of conferences and teams and coaches, et cetera, especially.
Even one cool one, TJ Power from Penn. The reason Penn beat LaSalle, probably the best player for them over the Cathedral Classic. He used to play for Virginia and Duke. So,
yeah,
like, you have a lot of these Power 4 guys coming down to, these mid-major schools. Like, listen, I don't expect Cameron Boozer to enter the portal and head to Temple next year, but, getting guys who are coming off the bench, like, not getting time at Virginia and Duke, he's got plenty of time and plenty of exposure now at Penn. So it's cool to also see, some of these guys who they're not the stars at Power 4 schools or these, blue bloods, but they're getting an opportunity and they're showing you why these blue bloods are always good because they have 15 guys on the bench that can go to another school and start and be a game changer.
Well, even not just the players, the coaches. You look at Fran McCaffrey coming to the Big Five, right? And you talk about that Penn LaSalle game. If you looked at the scouting and how Villanova approached LaSalle, when I was looking at like numbers and everything, the first thing that popped out to me was LaSalle just does not take 3-point shots. They're very low volume 3-point shooting team, while Villanova shoots literally double than what they do. The minute you go into a zone, ideally, if you can shoot over them. If you can't get inside and break them apart, you try to shoot over them. For LaSalle, that's just not really an option. Either they don't take enough
Mhm.
threes or they're not really good at it. So, but it's one of those things where that comes down to coaching. Like, okay, what does this team struggle with? What can they not do well? Okay, they're obviously attacking us this way. How can we turn this game on its head? Sometimes you just switch to a zone, and that's enough to throw a team off. And honestly, kudos to Fran for thinking that on the spot. But that's kind of going back to your point. Like you're introducing yourself to coaches you may not realize because they're not in power conferences, and then they find their way to a team that you do follow. You're like, oh wow, okay, now I had some exposure before he got to where I'm at right now. But yeah, I'm excited for the Big Five title game this weekend. It's obviously Villanova versus Penn. Based on what I've seen so far, I feel like Villanova should be fairly favored in that matchup. I think you probably agree with that as well. I don't think Penn can keep up with Villanova. Even if they shoot really well, I just think Villanova's got too much firepower at this point.
Yeah, Villanova I think just has too much depth on them for right now. Penn has some great shooters. Ethan Roberts at one point was the third leading scorer in college basketball. He's kind of cooled down. He didn't really have a great Cathedral Classic, but obviously you have TJ Power who's been as hot as could be right now. But I think just right besides those two right now for Penn, like I don't think they really have the depth to line up against Villanova. I think if Penn goes with the zone, like Villanova can very much shoot right over that zone. Like they have proven that time and time again. You can't. I don't think it's going to be an absolute cakewalk. It's the Big Five. It is a championship caliber team, and I think Kevin Willard. I think a quote after the Temple game, like, how do you build a championship caliber team with a brand new team? Like, you don't have a championship team. You have a brand new team, and it's like this is their opportunity to build a championship team. So,
Yeah.
it's a championship game, and I think Fran, having played and an assistant coach at Penn previously,
Yep.
he understands what this game means. He understands the significance. And I think Kevin Willard will have his guys too. So do I think it's going to be a close game? I think it's closer than what we think, but I think Villanova at the end, they're going to probably end up pulling away. I think it'll probably be a back and forth game because it's a championship game. There's a lot of emotion, but outside of TJ Power and Ethan Roberts, Penn just doesn't match up really well with Villanova right now.
So, I mean, that segues me perfectly into the Big East conversation, but let's talk about Villanova. We have them on our topic right now,
Yep.
so let's kind of continue on that. Obviously, I think two of the biggest additions they had this year and that we've seen so far in these last 3 or 4 weeks has been Bryce Lindsey from James Madison, but Duke Brennan from Grand Canyon down low has been just an absolute monster on the boards. I think was it the game against Queens, he had 17 points and 20 rebounds. I mean, just absolutely crazy. He led the nation in rebounding for at least the first couple weeks. But he's in the middle, clogging up the paint. Powers will have trouble.
He had 20 rebounds.
Yeah, 20. It's an insane number. But I would feel like Powers will struggle a bit inside against Brennan. And if it's not Brennan, Kapari's got great size. These guards have good size for the most part. And if you're talking about, okay, how about from a defensive standpoint, how is Penn going to stop? Even if they do go to zone, Caden Lewis, a freshman out of Villanova, he's already won Big East Freshman of the Year twice, or Freshman of the Week, rather, twice in the last month. But his ability to handle the ball and his ability to cut into the lane is like silky smooth. I mean, if you look at his highlights and what he's done so far, he just has great control of himself once he gets going and driving to the cup. From a passing standpoint, I'm pretty sure he's top 5 in assists right now for freshmen. And there's a lot of good freshmen. This is a great freshman class that we're seeing in college basketball, and he's racking up the assists left and right. So I think that Villanova, whether it's man on man or a zone defense from LaSalle, I do think they'll end up taking care of business. I think it might be a 10-point game. Maybe they pull away late. I think considering Fran knows the magnitude of this game, since again he's been part of this culture for so long, he knows the magnitude of, or the importance of it. I'm sure he's going to get his players ready, but at the same time, I think Villanova's really good, and I think what we're seeing from them so far is that they can beat you in different ways. They can beat you in the middle with Duke Brennan. They can cut into the lane with players like Caden Lewis. They have options across the board with Tyler Perkins and Bryce Lindsey shooting the three. Matthew Hodge, not the best stretch four, but he stretches the floor out. He plays a lot of energy, and if he gets going, he's another target on the end lines. They can shoot from the corner three and make it. I mean, there's so many players on that squad that are just showing that they belong in the Big East Conference, but showing that they can play together at a high level. Devin Askew hasn't really stepped up yet from a scoring aspect, but he brings a veteran leadership. Zion Stanford, another, I think he's a junior guy from Temple. He's starting to get more minutes. Now I think he had 10 minutes against his former school when they played Temple the other day when they blew them out. I think it was like 18-point game. Like Willard now has a really good problem. How the hell do I play all of these players? Like even Chris Jeffrey, the other freshman. You have Braden Pierce getting minutes. I mean, I knew Villanova had a chance to be deep. I did not realize that they would be 9 to 10 players deep, and like they're all fairly, competent players as well. At the very least, eight players. So I think you have a great point in terms of like how are you going to build a championship contender. One of those things is having depth and reliable depth and veteran depth, and he has that basically checked off across the board. So I'm really excited about Villanova. I do think they can make a splash in the Big East. If you're looking at the Big East, I released an article. Was it yesterday? The day before? At this point, I'm losing track of my days. Might have been Tuesday actually. Anyway, not important. This week I released an article about the Big East, and it's gone the way we thought it would for UConn. Guess what? They're really freaking good again. Solo Ball has like 14.4 points a game. They're deep. Alex Caravan shooting well. UConn probably gonna be top 10 team for the rest of the year across the board in all of college basketball. St. John's has a lot of question marks. If you saw their game against Auburn, one of the video links I posted in my article was talking about they don't really have a point guard. They're kind of uncertain on the backcourt. They have a good front court with Ejiofor. They're solid there. They obviously have very talented players, but there's some uncertainty with the backcourt. There's some question marks that St. John's has to deal with. To your point earlier about losing to very good schools early on, they've lost some of their really important games early on. They've won one too, but they've also lost a few. And then if you look at some of the other surprises, some of the teams to be concerned about, Marquette, like I said earlier, losing a lot of important games. They don't look like they're deep enough. They look like they probably should have gone to the transfer portal this year and gotten some veteran leadership. If you looked at their game against, God, who they played, it's drawing a blank. Was it Central Connecticut? No. There's a team that they played the other day, and I'm absolutely blanking on it right now. I'm so sorry. But they struggled.
Central Connecticut beat Providence.
No, Marquette just played recently, and the game went to overtime. And for the life of me, it's on the tip of my tongue. I cannot think of who they played literally 2 days ago. You can probably tell me. I'm just gonna look it
I'm
up.
looking it up right now.
It's like I thought of it. Valpo. They beat Valpo 75-72, but Valpo had like a lead late. I mean, they should have won that game. So Marquette has really been falling apart. I don't think they're going to beat Wisconsin. I don't think they're going to beat Purdue. Frankly, I want to say this now on December 4th. I don't think Marquette's going to make the NCAA tournament. And I feel very confident saying that. Creighton lost Jackson McAndrew, their rising sophomore star. That's a really tough loss. They've lost some of their very important games. They were in the players era tournament as well. I think they beat Oregon, but they lost the other couple games pretty handily. I believe they lost to BYU by like 25 also the week before that. Life after Kalkbrenner, not easy. Who would have thought? He was like Defensive Player of the Year for 4 years in a row. So Creighton is another team. I don't know if they make the NCAA tournament. I don't. And the reason why I say that is because Georgetown playing pretty damn good. They beat UMBC last night by 9, but that's a local rivalry. Those are always tough. Georgetown playing pretty solid. They're scoring the basketball well. Finley Bizjack and Michael Ajayi from Butler, a fantastic dynamic duo. They just won the Greenbrier tip-off during Feast Week, whatever. They look pretty damn good. Seton Hall, they were a really bad officiating call away from beating USC, Washington State, and NC State. They beat NC State. They beat Washington State. I mean, like Seton Hall won 7 games last year, Adam. They won the NIT the year before, and then they plummeted to 7 games the next year, which was last season. They already have 8 wins, and they beat Central Connecticut last night, covered at the very last minute. Or no, Central Connecticut covered at the last second. But what I saw from Seton Hall last night was, for one, the kid Bud Clark and the other guard right now, I think his name is like Limpkins or Simpkins. I forget his name. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but their guards are fast. The guards can shoot. The guards can cut. Defensively, though, Adam, I don't know if you watched Seton Hall yet, but they swarm on defense. They are relentless on defense. And people across Twitter, Seton Hall Twitter especially, are saying this might be the best defensive squad that Shaheen Holloway has had so far. I mean, they look really tough and they're suffocating. Again, So if you have Villanova, if you have Seton Hall, if you have Georgetown, if you have Butler, that's four teams I really think could knock out Marquette and Creighton for a spot in the NCAA tournament, at least a spot at the NIT. But it's going to be interesting how the Big East is going to turn out. I mean, even DePaul, Xavier, Providence, not great teams. I'm not going to say they're going to make the tournament. I doubt they're going to make the NIT, but teams that if they have a really good shooting night, yeah, they have enough talent to beat Georgetown one day. They have enough talent to beat probably St. John's if they can outshoot their backcourt. Um, I love the Big East. I think it's a great conference. I love that it's small. It's only 11 schools. I hate that these conferences now are like 25 teams or whatever ridiculous number they're at now. I like that it's just a small conference and you have a lot of depth in this conference. And I genuinely think you can probably get five teams into the NCAA tournament because Butler, Seton Hall, Georgetown, Villanova have all had a pretty good non-con. They really have. And now they have a last 3 or 4 days to make their final push. Like Villanova has Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pittsburgh. Villanova wins two of those three games, and they are decent in conference play. The Villanova Wildcats are going to be back in the tournament for the first time since Jay Wright brought them. I mean, I feel very confident in saying that. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for the Big East. I don't know. Again, I know you're doing your coverage. We kind of do our own thing, but what have you seen from the Big East? Any thoughts on what I shared? Because I feel like me saying Marquette and Creighton not making the tournament might be alarming to some people.
It's crazy to look. I'm looking right now at the standings. Every single team in the Big East has a winning record. There's no other conference that can say that. Like, that is incredible. And I think that's, with a non-conference schedule, like, that's what's going to make or break a team going into when it comes to Selection Sunday, because all these teams have to start playing each other. We see it a lot. We kind of see it a lot in football. Like, I was talking about the SEC football, like, they have 12 teams in the top 15, and then by the end of the season, there's only 3. It's because, they all have to start beating up on each other. So
Right.
I think, it's going to be tough. You say, like, why is this team in the tournament over this team? It's like, well, Providence, I'm not saying Providence making the tournament. Well, Providence, they had a pretty bad record compared to other bubble teams, but they also had key wins over Villanova, Georgetown, or Xavier, whatever it may be. So, even UConn, like, I think UConn's probably the best of the best in the Big East right now.
They
But,
just beat
like,
Kansas the other night.
I think, even UConn, like, I don't think this is a walk in the park for them. Like, the Big East is deep this year. This is back to, like, mid-2000s Big East, where this was the best conference. Like, arguably, I think when we come down to it, like, we see multiple, I think, March Madness teams in there. Like, I think UConn, 1,000%.
Yeah,
Seton
St.
Hall, I
John's.
think St. John, honestly, like, I think St. John's gets their acts together with Rick Pitino. I think Villanova can be a March Madness team, and I really think Georgetown can make it back this year. Like, legitimately can make it, unlike the one year where Patrick Ewing took them on a magical run and they won the Big East a couple years ago. But
funny.
realistically, like, Georgetown, I think for me is the biggest sleeper. Like, I think this Georgetown team can easily win the Big East this year. I think they can beat UConn. Like, now in a 7-game series, do I think UConn could win? Yeah, but I think a neutral floor, Madison Square Garden, I think this Georgetown team can win. When it comes to, like, long-term success from the Big East, do I see a national championship team in this conference? Maybe, maybe not. I'm still leaning towards Michigan, Arizona, Purdue. UConn, maybe, because, it's UConn. They're a year away from being back-to-back national champions. But this conference is deep, man. And I think it's going to come down to the non-conference schedule. That's really going to make or break this conference. Look at Villanova. Like, they have Pitt. They have Wisconsin. They have Michigan next. That game against Michigan is going to be key. Do I think they're going to beat Michigan? Probably not.
No.
But if they lose that game by single digits, or they take Michigan to the wire, or they have a lead late, listen, we always, people throw on the term quality loss.
Mm-hmm.
If they can lose to Michigan by single digits, that is a very good quality loss. Who just lost about Marquette beating Valpo in overtime? Yep. I'm sorry. I'd rather lose to Michigan. I think a loss to Michigan by 3 points than beating Valpo in overtime. So I think we'll learn a lot about Villanova from those 3 games. If, like you said, Villanova wins 2 of them, they're going to the big tournament at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that will also give them a lot of momentum. They can say they end their non-conference schedule with wins against Wisconsin and Pitt and winning the Big Five. They're going in the Big East play really, really a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence. Villanova, Georgetown, very much are in contention to knock off UConn.
Well, it's funny how the schedules weren't worked out because technically Kevin Willard didn't make this schedule. This is partially Kyle Neptune's schedule still because
Yeah.
obviously it's done a year before. I think the way schedules are laid out really benefit certain teams and also can hurt a lot of teams. Let's look at St. John's real quick. You talk about like close losses. Some of the teams they lost to was Alabama. They lost by like 7 or 8 points. That's not an awful loss. But then they also lost to Iowa State by 1 point. So it's not like they got blown out any of these games. They were fairly close in most of their big competitions, and I think they'll do fine. But I do think considering the caliber, the expectations that St. John's has, I think that it's good that they got those tough tests like out of the way early on. On the flip side of things, Villanova, I think them getting BYU in Vegas, which is basically a home game for BYU, was super unfair. I think it's a
Yeah.
really, and because not to mention you had a Villanova team that was coming in. Devin Askew had no business starting. He was barely healthy. You didn't have Zion Stanford. Caden Lewis is in his first ever collegiate game. I think you had a lot of things going against you, and you still almost beat BYU. You had a lead in the second half. And I think what people are kind of saying is like, well, yeah, Villanova's won 6 in a row, and they look great. And Bryce Lindsey's shooting 45% from the three, but they've beaten Queens, Sacred Heart, LaSalle, Temple, not
Mm-hmm.
exactly the upper echelon of the NCAA. So, but what I viewed as, yeah, but over these last 6 games, over these last 3.5 weeks, you have gotten players healthy. You have gotten players experience. Like Caden Lewis looks like a different player today than he did in
Mm-hmm.
Vegas against BYU. You can see where your rotations are going to come in. Okay, if Brandon can't see time or if he's in foul trouble, I know I can rely on Gapari for 30 minutes, which is what he did against Old Dominion, another team that they beat. I mean, Kevin Willard has had this chance of these last 3 weeks to now experiment, get things in order, see who's hot, see who's not. Tyler Perkins heating up right now. He's 8 for 11 from 3 for these last 2 games. I definitely think that if they can hang toe to toe with Michigan, the confidence they're going to have going into the Big East play is going to be amazing. I think Michigan's pretty damn good. I think they're going to probably win the Big Ten, if not compete for the Big Ten. I think Michigan State's really good. Izzo's got a powerhouse again. Was it the Carr, and then they got Kohler, and they have this other freaking tall white guy who's like awesome down low. I watched them the other day beat up on Iowa, and they just manhandled them. And Michigan State's really good, but the Big Ten is going to be really really tough, and I think you can get probably 2 national title contenders out of that conference. I think
I
Villanova.
think three, honestly, out of the Big Ten. You're
You have
missing the number
Indiana
one team in
too.
the country.
If
You're still
Indy
missing
and Purdue, that's
Purdue.
right. I forgot. I'm losing track of the conference line. I forgot all about Purdue. Purdue with Braden.
The
Was it
Big
Braden
Ten
Smith?
has
Braden Miller? Braden Smith? What's his last name?
look at this. I'm looking at the Big Ten standings right now.
Yeah,
They have 5 teams who are undefeated: Nebraska, Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue,
Nebraska.
USC.
Yeah, forgot.
Penn State's 1 loss. Indiana has and Iowa and Ohio State each have 1 loss.
Yep.
Illinois, UCLA, Wisconsin each have 2 losses. Maryland, Northwestern, and Washington have 3 losses, and then Rutgers, Minnesota, and Oregon each have 4 losses. Oregon's the worst team, and they're 4-4.
And Minnesota just beat Indiana, like we said earlier. So I
Yeah.
mean, they just not locked up a good win. And that was the player I was thinking was Braden Smith. He probably one of the players of the year already, candidates so far.
Mm-hmm.
So the Big Ten stuff, and I think, but again, the point I'm trying to make is I think if you played BYU now, you probably could have beat them compared to when you played them earlier on. So that's where I have confidence that they could compete with a national title contender like Michigan State, maybe not Purdue, but like they may be able to do it. Also, you're talking about the scheduling. You look at how Butler beat Virginia, right? And you're thinking in the nutshell, in that very small like vacuum, yeah, great. This is one game. You beat an ACC school. That's awesome. But Virginia just beat Texas. And suddenly that win that you had against them now looks a lot better. So
Right.
if Virginia goes on to be one of the best teams in the ACC, and Butler beat one of the best teams in the ACC, and now you beat Butler, it's like that process of elimination, that like ladder there. Now you have you got a pretty good win on your record. So Butler now has a massive target on their back because other teams that they beat have now gone on to do considerably noticeable things. So I'm excited for Big East, man. I'm excited for all these teams and all these games to finally kick off. I love that conference play is already underway for some conferences. We already saw. I don't know if you saw the Utah Tech kid punched one of the Santa Clara kids
Yeah.
yesterday in a game. Like tensions are getting hot already. It's only December. We still got 4 months to go. But again, you're gonna be at the Big Five title game, right? This Saturday.
I'll
For
be
you're
at
gonna
all
be
three games.
all three games. Okay. What time does that start anyway?
I think the first game's at I think it's 2, 4:30, 7:30.
Jeez. Okay. So you have a long day ahead of you, huh?
It's gonna be a very, very long day for me. But they're free, they're good. I got an email. They do serve dinner, so hopefully Xfinity Mobile has good food for
You'll ha-
media.
you'll have
The
to let
Link has
me.
really good food for
Do
the
they?
media. So yeah, that I've been there for Temple games, and they actually do serve really good food for the media. Hopefully they serve it good for Xfinity. Let's see, either Jeffrey Lurie or Josh Harris. Who's gonna win this one?
Right. Yeah. Well, the Philadelphia Union, because for those who don't know, I cover Philadelphia Union for AAT Sports, and their food spread's pretty decent. Like when they get like the cheesesteak day or the meatballs, or like they have like I think they have like taco day. They got pretty decent spread at Super Park down in Chester, so which is not far from you, by the way, Adam. So
I pass it on my way to the office sometimes.
yeah, you listen. You might have to stop by next season for a game, catch up with Jose and I, and catch some soccer. But, well, you're going to be at that game on Saturday. I will be as a fan on Tuesday night. I will be at UMBC's game against Buffalo in Baltimore. So I'm super excited about that. I'm actually sitting courtside that game. So if you see me on ESPN Plus, you know, say hello from your screen. But yeah, I won't be that far from you that day. So we'll try to catch a game together soon at some point in our region because you're not that far from me at all.
No,
Um,
I think I was like looking around like already like my huge focus was just trying to get to the Big Five Classic, and then I realized like, oh, there's actually more games after the season after the Big Five Classic. This isn't just the end. So I think like next week I'm going to go to St. Joe's, Coppin State, two teams I've already seen play this year, but haven't actually been to St. Joe's yet. So excited to be there and crazy. Yeah, just got to get some more games. I saw Drexel, Maine. I'm like, oh, let's go see Maine. I haven't seen Maine play basketball yet this year, and yeah, I mean it's the fun thing about Philadelphia, like the Big Five, is you have six, programs who are all different conferences. So you get just this huge range. You have the Big East obviously coming to Villanova, and you have, you get to see Marquette and UConn and St. John's play, but then you also get, Drexel, and they get to see them play Maine, and Temple obviously in the American still has some good teams. So it's exciting. Like obviously there's a lot of big hype and focus with the Big Five, but with conference play right around, like Temple's always been a tough team to mess around when it comes to the American. I remember a couple of years ago they beat Houston when Houston was the number one team in the country, before Houston departed for the Big 12. So it's exciting, and there's a lot of good teams that get to come through the city of Philadelphia via one of the six teams of the Big Five.
I was thinking too locally for you, Towson's not that far away. You saw them already, didn't you, at the
I
Baltimore
saw
Classic?
Towson. Yeah, I saw Towson. Who did they play? Loyola. Yeah, all
Towson's
Maryland's best.
Yeah, Towson's the Maryland. It was funny. So I started working in Annapolis this past spring, and I thought to myself, like, there's a lot of Division I schools in Maryland, and even now, off the top of my head, I think Morgan State is Morgan State Maryland. I don't think so, but Coppin
It's
State,
Tennessee.
UMBC, Maryland Eastern Shore, right? Like obviously, there's so many teams in Maryland. I think they have like 10 Division I schools in Maryland. But it's funny you mentioned the Big 12, and it's just like I lose track of where teams have gone to. Like now, Colorado's in the Big 12. BYU is obviously in the Big 12 UCF.
Arizona.
Arizona, yeah, but like I saw that Towson's playing Kansas on was it in on December 16th. I'm assuming that's in Kansas.
I
Yeah,
would I would assume so. That'd be awesome.
it's an Allen Fieldhouse. I'm like, I wonder how Towson's gonna do out there in Allen Fieldhouse. Are they gonna get absolutely rocked by the Jayhawks, who just lost to UConn last night? But listen, this is our conversation for college basketball. I like that we were able to hop on again today. Considering the holidays, we'll try to maybe get one before Christmas. That's kind of like the end of these like non-conference games. Otherwise, we'll probably just do one come January after the holidays have passed. Any last thought though, Adam? We've been talking for 45 minutes. Again, we have a lot to talk about with college hoops.
It should be fun, man. I think conference basketball, like it just gets so much more exciting. Like you get to see like rivalries start to happen. You start to
Yep.
again. I know it's been clear like over the first 5 weeks of who's the better teams out there. Who's Florida's not as dominant as they were last year. St. John's is obviously slipping a little bit. So like it's starting to
Yep.
come out of like who are the true contenders, and then at once conference basketball start, it's it really starts to when you get these consistent top 25 matchups like it's conference basketball. The SEC is going to have multiple top 25 matchups on like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. We're like, we're really going to start to see now who the true contenders are, and we'll start to see the big name players start to pop up. Excited to see what the Cameron Boozer can do at Duke and what that team can do. And yeah, just kind of keep going, and it'll be March Madness before we know it.
Yeah, I mean, talk about conference play. I'm pretty sure my math is correct. There's 16 teams in the Big 12. All of them are five
Makes
and three or
sense.
better. Yeah, of course. All of them are 5 and 3 or better. So like any given night, just imagine being let's talk about Arizona, right? Number 2 team in the country right now. Arizona, any week could be playing number 8 Houston, number 9 BYU, number 10 Iowa State, who's freaking awesome by the way. Texas
hmm
Tech, number 19 Kansas. And even if they're not a ranked team, oh god, I got to play the Buffaloes, out in Colorado, elevation. And then after that, I got to play Baylor, who's not ranked, in West Virginia. I mean, when Baylor won the national championship against Gonzaga, I remember I said like the Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball, and I think you can make a case that every year they're probably the best conference in college basketball because they're so deep. Every team could be a
hmm
winner in the Big East or A10 or ACC. They all can compete. It's fun. Again, that goes back to your point, man. Now it's time to watch these teams beat up on each other, and it ain't gonna be pretty at all times, but it's gonna be a lot of
Now,
fun. But listen, so this is our college basketball conversation with Mike Barrera and Adam Mack. You can follow Adam Mack on our ticker below if you're watching on YouTube, Adam Mack 8727, or Mike Barrera, M Barrera, Barrera 1323 on Twitter. I'm sure, Adam, you'll probably have some sort of article out on Saturday or Sunday after the Big Five, right?
I'm working on a
Um,
preview article right now. I'm trying to have that out tomorrow morning.
Apps.
So hopefully get that out and let everyone know what to expect on Saturday. Then I'll have a recap. Probably won't post that until Sunday. It's gonna be a very late night on Saturday for me. So that sounds like a Sunday job for me.
It's a Sunday morning. Throw some football that's not Eagles on, and just
Yep.
check it out. For me, I'll try to put out a Villanova piece probably around the time they play Michigan, and probably like a preview for the Michigan game, especially because I'll be after Wisconsin Pitt. Otherwise, I think what I'm going to do is just do a monthly recap of the Big East. I love the article I put out. I'm really proud of it. I think it really got in depth. So I'm going to do it again December, kind of catch up on all
Absolutely.
those things. Villanova. Otherwise, everybody, thanks for watching. Go Hoops. Go Birds.
Go Birds.